What's going on, everyone? I'm just your average, everyday, atypical Canadian nerd here to react to your average, everyday, typical American man here to react to and learn about a video predicting what Toronto will be like in the year 2030. Now, I don't live in Toronto, so this is going to be amusing for me. I do not know what this is going to be about. This is all brand new. But I have been to Toronto many times in my life. And so I might have some context or perspective to add to this. Well, that's kind of my shtick, you know? I'm just here having a good time, enjoying these videos, giving my added information, really, answer questions he asks, and give a little bit more context. Well, that said, I hope you enjoy this kind of thing. If you don't, like, why are you here? Is it just because of the beard? Because that's cool. Anyway, stick around if you enjoy my voice. Leave comments if you like my voice but don't like what I'm doing, you know? Maybe you'll convince me to do something a little different. And of course, if you are going to leave negative comments, please make sure they are constructive criticisms, because things like him clown, you clown, thumbs down, it doesn't really give me anything to go off of, and it's just going to make me silence you so you don't have a chance to comment anything else on my channel, because why would you? Like, come on, that's just silly. But hey, I don't understand people very well. That's because I'm the atypical Canadian nerd. Well, all that said, I'll probably introduce a French word later on in the video, near the end. And that's all the preamble for now. Let's get this picture out of the way, get the video underway.
What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about what Toronto will look like in 2030. Or as this video puts it, Toronto's insane city of the future in 2030, which is also a pretty good title. It got my attention. You know, I was able to take a look at Toronto and react to some of Toronto a while back, and I thought this was a really interesting little video here that I wanted to watch about, it's probably going to talk about some of the oncoming developments going on in Toronto, some of the things coming to Canada, some futuristic mega city being created for 2030. I'm sure from 2010 to 2020, around now, Toronto has changed a lot. The world has changed, let's be honest. Technology leaps so far in 10 years now, faster than ever.
Yeah, especially since 2020, I consider us to be living in the future now, compared to the 90s when I was young, right? Like, things are very different. Well, that was like 20, 30 years ago now. Oh.
So, who knows what Toronto's going to be like in 2030, but maybe this will give us a little idea. I'm interested.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see just how much of this actually comes to fruition. Like, for example, the Chinese Communist Party has been advertising a lot of what they're going to do and what they've already done. But people who visit and get away from their handlers from the Communist Party discover it's all a facade. Like, recently, the Asian Games, their version of kind of a segregated Olympics. The opening ceremonies on TV and internet had wonderful fireworks, laser shows, and amazing things happen, but people who were there in person saw none of it because it was all digital, all fake. Right, and that's kind of the Chinese Communist Party in a nutshell. All fake. So I wonder, with influence from China that has obviously crept its way through all parts of society. Look at TikTok, right? Look at Justin Trudeau, and so on. I could keep going, but I might offend people because, like, conspiracy-minded ideas, I suppose. I don't know, but hey, it's It's real. The Chinese invasion of the West it's documented. There's evidence. Like it's happening. So with all that in mind, this could be a similar thing where they're just gonna pretty it up with digital artifacts. Well, let's see.
As a new decade begins, the pace of change in Toronto shows no signs of slowing. Trends and plans are in motion that are set to reshape the city by the year 2030. It may feel like the Toronto skyline is getting taller and denser by the day, but by the next 10 years, it will be undisputably so.
I think that depends a lot on housing initiatives that happen, and that depends a lot on the government that will be in power over the next 5 to 7 years. Because right now it's not going so well, and there are plans to make it better, but at the moment, it's ridiculously expensive to live in Toronto.
Whether you live in Toronto or plan on visiting someday soon, one thing you'll notice right away is the city's constantly evolving skyline. Hello and welcome back to our channel, Future Planet. Look into Toronto.
You know, you notice the skyline if you're in a tall building, or if you're across the lake and you can see, well, you can barely see Toronto from across the lake here in Niagara, but let's say you're going out on a boat and you see the skyline, or you're up high in a building and you see the skyline. Otherwise, at ground level, you don't really notice the skyline, you just notice there's a lot of concrete and glass.
Toronto's insane city of the future in 2030.
Okay.
Before we continue, just take a moment to subscribe to... Let's begin. By 2030, Toronto will have a population of 8 million, on its way to 10 million by 2045.
This has more to do with immigration than it does natural reproduction, because we are a nation of immigrants, and we're constantly accepting people from all over the world, especially refugees. And there are plans to increase that number drastically as time goes on. Well, in the Western world, the natural replacement rate is declining, and that has a lot to do with cycles of prosperity, and that's a whole thing. But let's just say, as crises loom and as money is available, people are less likely to have lots of kids.
Oh, well, what's the population of Toronto right now?
I believe it's in the 7 millions.
Toronto population. 2.9. Oh, that was 2017. Do we have... No, 2017. Anything else? People also ask.
Like, Canada's got a population of 40 million, and Toronto is the biggest, most populous city, so it makes sense to me that it's in the 7s.
I'm people, and I'm asking.
Also, Toronto is not just a core city. There's something known as the Greater Toronto Area, which covers a lot more space. So I guess that depends on your definition. Are we talking downtown Toronto? Sure, maybe just 2 or 3 million. But the Greater Toronto Region? Yeah, that's a lot.
6 million? Wait, it went from 2.9 to 6 million now? And here we're saying, let's go back a little bit, 8 million. Oh man, given if that rate of growth is correct, what Google just told me, and Google is always correct. No, Google could very well be just sourcing information from some weird data points, who knows. But if it really went from around 3 to 6 million in 5 years, in 10 more years, if Toronto's currently at 6 million, it's going to be a lot more than 8 million by 2030.
Population.
Yeah, that all depends on where we put the people coming into this country, where they decide to move around, and how many people can actually afford to live in Toronto. Does housing cost decrease, or do opportunities increase? It's hard to say. And then, of course, there's the whole definition of what is Toronto. If you count Markham, then there's a lot more people, right? If you count Ajax, there's a lot more people. These are cities just in the Toronto region, but outside of what most people would consider Toronto. Although, You go to Scarborough, you're still in Toronto.
Of 8 million. On its way to 10 million by 2045. Toronto will be one of the most diverse megacities if Ontario government projections are correct. Statistics Canada says the population in the Greater Toronto Area will grow by millions and it will be the fastest growing part of Ontario. The
Wow.
need to house, move, and employ those new people is already starting to shape the city.
Oh, especially with housing investment, right? So real estate investment, people see housing as a way to grow their money. So they buy a condo, for example, and then it stays empty. And they buy another one. Real estate speculation, they call it. Anyway, results in a lot of empty homes.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Probably why he made the point. The population of Toronto is skyrocketing, from what I'm hearing. So housing developments, I mean, really any kind of investment into the city at that point is going to be critical to necessitate all those people, and that people.
Number 8. YSL Residences. YSL Residences is a residential skyscraper under development on Yonge Street.
What? Hold on. I've never heard of this.
I mean, why would you, right?
YSI? How do you say this?
City. Number 8. YSL Residences.
YSL. Is that like a brand name? Are they building residences like into the sky or something?
I mean, developments have weird names, right? So you can just call a building whatever you want, and that could be the name of this building.
YSL Residences is a residential skyscraper under development on Yonge Street. YSL is the acronym for Yonge Street Living. The project was first proposed in 2017 with a planned height of 1,125 feet. But in 2018, the city's planning department rejected the plan. Then, the height was scaled down to 980 feet.
Is this supposed to be the world's biggest apartment building or something?
I don't think so. Burj Khalifa comes to mind. This is more just a giant building for housing people, which Toronto desperately needs.
Imagine being the guy on the top floor, 1,000 feet in the air. I'd be that guy, honestly.
Oh, probably wouldn't be able to afford it in Toronto, Tyler. No, I mean, I don't know what you make, but I can't imagine it's enough.
No one could sneak up on you if you're the guy on the top of the tallest tower of the. That's how I think of it.
The construction on this tower has not yet started, though the demolition of the existing building has been completed, leaving the facade remaining on the site. The facade is preserved to wrap the base of the skyscraper, like that of the Hearst Tower in New York City.
Ooh.
The construction will possibly start in late 2022 and is scheduled to be completed in 2026.
Well, to be fair, obligatory pause, I have not been on Yonge Street in the past year because it's one heck of a long street. There's a lot of people, a lot of cars, there's a lot going on, and I grew up in a forest. I like peace and quiet.
Wait, it's late 22. It's late 2022 right now. Has construction on this began? Is this just a giant place for people to live? It's a residential building, right?
That's what residential building means, yeah.
Number 7. CC3.
CC3. So this is another mega building project?
Cummins Court 3.
Yeah?
In 2017, a 64-story skyscraper was proposed by the Quadrille Property Group to replace two low-rise buildings of Cummins Court.
Yeah, they're so low rise, so low. They're massive. Man, is that what the future is now? Everything just has to be taller and bigger. Is that what defines the future? Shouldn't it be that we're starting to float in midair, like the building should float in midair or something?
Well, floating buildings would take up a lot of resources and a technology that we don't have yet, plus a power source that is more generative than what we currently have. plus batteries that are better at storage than what we currently have. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through before we can have floating buildings. But yes, vertical storage is much more effective. Consider the bookcase here behind me. If I had all these things laid out on a table, that table would take up my entire room here. But the fact that it's vertical storage allows me to keep more things. Same goes with tall buildings for residences, more people. Amsterdam figured that out a long time ago. And in Amsterdam, interestingly enough, the property tax is by square foot, not cubic foot. And so it's just the footprint of the property that is being taxed, which means they built very tall, very narrow buildings, which makes the staircases ridiculously steep and very narrow. So, interestingly, the buildings are not straight vertical. They kind of lean out towards the street so that if someone wants to get furniture into the top window, there's a beam that sticks out and they just haul it up with a rope and then they go to the top apartment through the window. Very interesting. I love the architecture there.
The skyscraper will be the third high-rise building built on the Commons Court site, after Commons Court North, built in 1931, and Commons Court West, which was built in 1972. The original design of the skyscraper was a little similar to Ping An Finance Center in Shenzhen.
Wow.
But the design was revised later in March 2019, mainly on the facade pattern. The height was almost not changed, the roof height...
Wow, that is a cool looking building. I mean, I assume we're talking about the one on the right.
Like, in theory, I don't think these are real buildings, they're just art, right?
That's pretty cool, pretty modern.
will be at about 984 feet.
Everything's gotta be, why can't they just make them 1,000 feet tall at that point? Now they're just trolling a little bit. Make it 1,000 feet.
I'm pretty sure engineering has to do with that. Maybe aerospace laws. I'm not sure, I'm just guessing.
While the total height will be 1,148 feet, thanks to a spire mounted on the top.
Okay, I mean, a spire. Like
a tower, a spike. It would be for electricity and communications.
Like the one in Lord of the Rings. It's like that Sauron stood on. It's like the top of a big tower that you get to stand on and look at stuff.
Think the top of the tall building in New York, Empire State Building, how there's a spire there. It's kind of a lightning rod.
And possibly control orcs and do evil deeds? Or maybe just admire Toronto?
The proposal was approved in June 2019. The developers expect that the project will be topped out in 2025.
I mean, these buildings aren't that far off anymore. 2026, 2025, just...
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to tell where they are unless you're going to visit the spaces, because Toronto is always under construction in multiple places all year round, every year.
Just a few years.
Number 6. Union Park 1. In 2012, Oxford Properties proposed a redevelopment of the Toronto Convention Centre and railway lands. It included a casino and several mixed-use buildings. The Convention Centre's North Building would be replaced with two 1070-foot twin towers designed by Norman Foster. The proposal of the casino was rejected by the City Council, which also resulted in a cancellation of the twin towers. 7 years later, in June 2019, Oxford Properties unveiled a new plan for the redevelopment.
Wow, look at this thing. It's like a futuristic metropolis. This is more what I envisioned, something like this.
Well, yeah, I think the movie Dredd, taking place in the Judge Dredd universe, had a pretty good idea of what cities and buildings will become, where every tall building is its own self-contained city, with shops and businesses and thousands of homes. Yeah.
Consists of 4 towers just north of the Rogers Centre and the CN Tower. and is at the west of the previous proposal of the Twin Towers. The tallest of these 4 towers is an office tower that will rise to 994 feet and will contain 58 stories.
Cool.
If approved, the construction could begin as soon as 2023.
So this is more of a office building, just purely for businessmen, business stuff, if you want to call it. Which makes sense if Toronto is going to explode their economy and population. It's going to necessitate not only places to live, but places for people to work and stuff like that. Okay, makes
Especially important in that area, which is very business heavy, but also very tourist heavy. Like the convention center is one of the main attractions in the downtown area.
sense.
And be complete in about 5 years. Number 5. 2060 King Street West Tower. 2060 King Street West Tower, also known as Mervish Gary West Tower, is...
Okay. I don't know how I feel about buildings like this.
They're like artwork, you know? Think of children building with Legos, get creative, right? And then they grow up to become architects.
Is it designed to look like it's going to fall over like a tower of blocks?
Yeah, like it's supposed to stand out, being different and blow your mind. As long as it's made with the proper construction materials, it should be safe.
I think it is designed to look something like that, but makes me a little nervous. It certainly is modern looking, but I can't decide if it's modern looking in a good way, a cool way. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm curious if it actually turns out like that, because there are some very interesting buildings in Toronto, but I don't know if, like, how many of them actually were supposed to look that way. Kind of happens with these ridiculous building projects.
Super tall tower planned to be built on King Street West as a part of the development of a 2-tower residential building complex called Mervish Gurry.
Wow. You know what? If you, in real life, seeing it in real life, in its beauty, in mammoth scale, it would probably be pretty cool.
The 2 towers are respectively to be built on the west and east side of Ed Mervish Way. The east tower is shorter at 875 feet. David Mervish first announced the project in 2012.
Of course, it's being developed by an art dealer. That makes sense. This thing looks like it's trying to be a little work of art, doesn't it?
Yeah. The original plan included 3 towers. It was then changed to 2 towers in 2014 and was approved in 2017. However, after that, the heights of the towers have been modified several times. The latest planned height for the west...
Look at this photo. There's future Toronto, right there. They certainly stick out, these 2 buildings, don't they?
Well, yes, especially since the other proposed tall buildings are not featured in this picture.
Very interesting. They'd certainly be iconic looking. I'll give them that.
Tower is 1,010 feet. No word on when the construction will start. However, it's expected to be completed before 2030. Number 4.
That means sometime in 2035 or something, because this stuff never gets done on time.
Yeah, and often doesn't end up the way that it was originally planned. Like, every time this gets reviewed, it ends up getting shorter, right?
1. Also known as 1 Bloor Street West, the 1 is a super tall tower under construction at the intersection of Bloor Street and Yonge Street. The construction of the tower began in 2017, and with current progress, it's expected to be completed in 2024.
Okay. Wow, that is a lot. Oh my gosh. Imagine seeing this thing under construction for 7 years, probably longer. Goodness.
The tower will stand at 1,013 feet and become the first super tall skyscraper in Canada. It will overtake the title of Canada's tallest building from First Canadian Place, which has been holding that title since 1976.
Wow. I mean, with a name like The One.
Yeah.
What did they say the purpose of this building is again, other than being gigantic?
The tower will be a mixed-use building. Lower floors will be occupied by a hotel with 160 guest rooms, and all the floors above are residential floors containing 416 condos.
Wow, condos, places to live. I mean, if it looks anything like this mock-up here, These are going to be expensive.
And hot. I mean, no matter what time of year, that's a lot of sunshine coming in those windows.
But cool nonetheless. Amazing view. Goodness gracious, imagine owning one of these condos. That's going to be insane.
Yeah, only the rich will be able to afford the ones that have the beautiful view. Everyone else will be on the bottom 30 floors, and they'll have the view of, like, windows across the street.
And a hotel for the tourism. Okay, okay.
All the floors above are residential floors containing 416 condos. Number 3. 212 King Street West. Proposed in December 2020, the skyscraper of this project will be built closely adjacent to 3 heritage buildings on King Street West, which
Okay.
were built in the early 20th century. Parts of the skyscraper will cantilever over the historic buildings, making them appear like the base of the tower.
Oh.
New York-based Shop Architects is selected to design the building.
Why is there a giant moon?
New
I got distracted here. What's that giant moon doing there?
Yeah, I don't know, artistic interpretation, maybe?
Is that something to do with the future of Toronto?
Like, I don't spend a lot of time downtown, and when I do, I'm mostly focusing on the traffic because I'm in a car.
Maybe they've learned to harness the power of the moon. I don't know.
good experience in incorporating historical landmark buildings with modern skyscrapers, like what they did with 111 West 57th Street in Manhattan, which also has a historic building at its base. The skyscraper will feature 588 rental units.
Oh, okay. So it's like that. This is a good picture where it's, oh goodness, one of the designs that makes me nervous, where it's built to kind of hang over some of the older historical buildings. I mean, it's cool. It's definitely cool.
Yeah, it's a good look, and it totally keeps the original buildings beautiful.
660,000 square feet of office space and over 10,000 square feet of retail space.
Okay. So places for people to lease out, rent for their businesses, office space. A lot of office space, but even if that's kind of boring, it is necessary, I suppose.
And retail space, which goes back to what I was saying earlier about the Judge Dredd buildings.
The tower will have a height of approximately 1,017 feet, and the estimated completion date is 2027.
Okay.
Number 2. Sky Tower.
Ooh.
Sky Tower is a part of a luxury condo development called Pinnacle One Young.
Which is not going to help the residential issues happening in Toronto at all. Luxury apartments, that's not for regular folk.
Okay.
Which is composed of a trio of high-rise residential towers.
They know how to name this stuff, man. Sky Tower. The One Tower. Pretty cool.
Yeah, marketing's important.
They'd get me with that kind of marketing.
The towers are under development in the waterfront area of downtown Toronto.
What? You're sitting above the clouds now?
Kind of fog, because it can get very foggy when you're on a lake.
How? Okay. If you're looking to... how much does this cost? If you're looking for a high status symbol, literal symbolism of high status, being above the freaking clouds in your penthouse, above all the peasants below crawling around, this'll do it. I mean, this is a cool site. Kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, I've spent a fair amount of time in the Scarborough area, also very close to the water, and on the 8th floor of a building, some days you just can't see anything because the fog is just thick.
And just about a kilometer away from the CN Tower. The project was proposed in 2013, but the planned height of 1,025 feet was only revealed in February 2020.
I mean, a lot of these buildings are going to be about 1,000 feet tall. He wasn't kidding. The skyline of Toronto is going to change a lot. It's going to be scary with all these behemoths. If all this comes to fruition, all these massive 1,000-foot buildings get built, that's going to be something.
And you're right, Tyler, and scary because like as a small town bumpkin driving through Toronto, you look up and see these intimidating buildings, and you just like, how many other people are staring at these buildings instead of focusing on the road and the other cars around them? And when you're traveling at over 100 kilometers an hour, surrounded by 5 lanes of traffic, uh, yeah, that can get scary.
Sky Tower will have 95 stories. The first 7 floors are retail space. Right above that is a 12-story hotel, and the residential floors begin on the 13th floor, and a penthouse suite will top off the tower.
Oh, the top is a penthouse. Oh my gosh. The top where you're above the clouds, raining down on everyone, is a penthouse.
Well, in my experience, the top floor of most any building is a penthouse.
A lot of these buildings are office spaces, residential spaces, a hotel. That's the kind of developments that are mostly on this list, but it does make sense, I gotta admit.
The body of the tower will be enclosed by a crystal-like glass silhouette with a faceted exoskeleton.
What?
This design will make it become one of the most distinctive skyscrapers in the skyline of Toronto.
What? It's gonna have a freaking exoskeleton around it. Now we're talking. Now we're talking about 2030 Toronto, the futuristic city of the future. Okay, exoskeleton.
The construction started in 2020 and is scheduled to be completed in late 2025.
Okay.
It will become the tallest building in the city by that time.
Wow.
Number 1, 1200 Bay Street.
Judging by the street addresses, these are all in the downtown core.
1200 Bay Street is a 87-story mixed-use skyscraper proposed to be built in the city's Yorkville area. It will replace a 16-story building built in the 1960s. The tower will have a height of 1,063 feet and will have a skinny form, kind of like 111 West 57th Street in New York City.
Okay.
The building is designed by Swiss architectural firm Herzog and de Meuron. They have designed...
Yeah, I mean, with these mega super future buildings, they can just let these architecture firms go to town just to design the most outrageous, futuristic-looking buildings you've ever seen.
Many interesting buildings around the world, one of which is 56 Leonard Street in New York City. The first 16 floors of the tower will be retail space and offices. The remaining floors above that are mostly for residential use, including 322 condominium units. The top 3 floors will have a restaurant and a sky lounge.
Oh my gosh. These really are built for some expensive folk to live in.
Yeah, they're not going to help the cost of housing at all.
They have like penthouses at the tops of all of these. But I have no doubt they will have no trouble selling it out.
Like the retail workers that work in these buildings will not be able to live in these buildings. I think that's ridiculous and kind of the wrong way to go. But hey, what do I know? I grew up in a forest, right?
Words on construction and when the tower will be topped out. So with that, our video has come to an end here. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Okay. Interesting. This was by The Future Planet. I gotta give that a like. Are there any comments on this?
I mean, we'll see how many of these actually come to fruition. In, 7 years? Maybe more? Yeah. Well, we'll see. Skeptical person is skeptical.
I moved to Toronto, and it's been mesmerizing watching the city get reimagined, rebuilt block by block. Yeah, I mean, at the same time, you don't want to destroy the history of Toronto, but then again, you get all these incredible new developments all the time. So
there's a lot changing in Toronto, but hey, just like any place, it's constantly changing. Like here where I live, not a very big place, but there's constant change. Like building gets demolished, new building is proposed, condo building that goes high up in the sky. They're everywhere.
So It's a give and take. I have lived in Toronto back in the late 80s. I can't believe the incredible transformation that has occurred since then. Yes, and it's still happening, apparently.
Yeah, I feel like every time I go there, there's a tall building I never saw before. Then again, I shouldn't be focusing on the buildings when I'm driving 120 kilometers an hour.
If this is any indication. Oh, you have to make a minimum of 100K a year to live here. Exactly. That was what I was kind of getting at.
Average salary is about half that.
It's getting really crowded and competitive already. Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, there have been bidding wars for apartments and condos, pricing people out all across southern Ontario.
These are some expensive looking buildings if you want to live in these residences. I mean, living in any major city is very expensive. It's not like I'm picking on Toronto in particular. But these new buildings are kind of begging for it. They are massive and they are fancy and they are modern, and that is very, very cool. But probably costs a lot to get your business in there or use the office and other stuff like that. Okay,
Yep.
okay. Interesting. This was for so Toronto's insane city of the future, 2030, has a lot of really fantastic, crazy, gigantic buildings coming.
Well, welcome to the future. Things are gonna be weird. I mean, heck, the past 3 years have been real weird, and it's just gonna get weirder.
And the population is going to continue to grow, so they're mostly focusing on making more office space, making more living spaces, which makes a lot of sense. And I'd be interested to see how Toronto continues to develop in the future, in the next few years, how much of these come to fruition and how much the city does grow.
And I'm also curious how public transit adapts, because it's pretty chaotic as it is. And societally, things have been getting worse. Like, over the last few years, there have been many incidents of violent actions happening on public transit. And I don't think that these buildings are going to make that better.
And I imagine the economy will grow there. And it's great. It's great to see a city investing in itself, that kind of thing. It's very smart. So,
Although I think it would be a lot smarter to build more common homes, multifamily dwellings for people with average incomes.
anyway, if you thought this video was smart and interesting as well, feel
Or
free
if
to
you
give
did,
it a like or leave a
go
comment.
ahead, like,
And if you're
give me your
interested in more
thoughts.
videos like this, me
Like
reacting to
me
Canada,
reacting to
Canadian
him,
culture,
reacting to
things
us
going on in
and
Canada
our stuff
that I've never learned about
that
before,
he hasn't heard of,
feel free to
I might know
subscribe
about.
for more.
Oh yeah,
And until then,
go ahead.
thanks for watching, and see you next time. What's going on there?
Yes. Thank you for watching. If you don't watch, then what am I doing here? Right? I'm just having fun, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm just having fun. So thank you for watching. This is great. Geez, let's say French word of the day. Since Toronto is always growing, I'm going to go with a word that means growing, and that's agrandir. Agrandir. Grand meaning big, agrandir being the verb to embiggen, to make bigger. Agrandir. There, I did it. The word of the day. You're welcome. And that's all I got. So thank you for watching again. I hope you enjoyed this. I kind of did. It's an interesting month, this month of Spooktober. And so I'm going to get back to watching nothing but horror content for the entire month, as is tradition around here. No, that's just my personal tradition for the last 3 years. It's, well, it gets me in the spirit of Halloween by the time it gets here on October 30th. And, well, that's my life for now. And I hope y'all just keep being awesome. Bye.
Science, spirit, life. Nerd Pope King.